Well, I was born in 1947, which is a good few months ago now, and I lived opposite Guinness's near Houston Station for the first 3 or 4 years maybe, and then we went out to a place called Marino. I spent the rest of my life there, and we also had a business. My father had a business in the centre of the city at the weekends with the football pools. So on the weekend, I'd have to collect all these books, as they call them. Like it was the equivalent of the lotto now, and I would deliver them on a Sunday then again. So that was my weekend. That was my pocket money, So I was making money from the time I was in Nipper. Even a few shillings for pocket money. I always earned my own pocket money, so I'm still doing it. And because always had a car in my family, even when I lived on the Keys when we were 1947, 48, 49, we had a car. No one had a car, And my father was from Dundalk and my mother Belfast. We were always travelling up and down the country. And then the father would be around, going out to meet his agents around the country. During that time, when we lived in the Keys, I got meningitis. And I nearly died. So then it made me the blue-eyed boy. I could do nothing wrong. And I spent a lot of time going up to my aunts in Belfast and also up on the train on the Enterprise. That was the train and I didn't realise until recently that Enterprise was born the same year as I was born. So I was going up in it's in the museum up in somewhere around County Down somewhere. So one particular day, 1966 I think it was, the 50th anniversary of the Rising, and there was a parade, a military parade, for that. Did all the sailors and all the army guys and different things like that. So I was just watching that, and I still remember the moment I made up my mind I was going to join the Navy. So I'm just joining that now, and that just was the most amazing thing after that. That ended up me becoming a sailor in reality. The Navy, the Reserve Navy is called the Slough Marie. So then, getting back to how I started that wonderful time was when I was watching the parade. I just fancied the Navy uniform and that kind of thing, and that just became, for a couple of years, I think it was one night a week we go to training in the barracks, A very great officer was bringing out. We go out in the snow and it's the O'Leary sailing in, so right through the winter. And then we come down to Cork in Crosshaven. I used to get 2 weeks off of work because it was a semi-state company, and then I got 2 weeks from my own holidays. So I come down to Crosshaven for a month, and that was all chasing young ones, drinking beer and cider and whatever else there was there, and then lots of sailing. And a bit of march. We used to march down into the centre of Crosshaven on a Sunday morning. They were just fabulous days. So you had all the old army guys. You had a big sausage in the morning, big thick crust of bread, a lump of butter, and and just in those days you didn't care. Maybe getting over the hangover from the night before. Because even in those days, the army guys and all these big flagons of cider, they were ginormous ones. We might forget what they're like, but they were 2 and 6. So we'd be in with the mess with all the guys before we went down into town. Some people were obsessed with it, but anyway, it was a good crack. It felt as though I was there forever. It was only 2 or 3 years. Before I got married, I went over to England, South Shields in England, to do the certificates for the marine engineering, and spent a couple of months over. You could do the module, So I was after telling everybody was telling me, when you go over there, you'll end up getting married. Glad to see you experience it. I said, no way will it catch to me so. So I used to go in and study every night, till 9, 10 o'clock at night, and right through. Got those 2 exams, much to my amazement in some ways. I could do all the complicated stuff, and I couldn't do simple maths. The next, I had to go and study then for the maths, algebra and all this kind of stuff, So I got very good at it in the end. So I'm back, and the other one was drawing, which I'm very good at anyway. Don't mind saying that was easy, kind of mechanical drawing. So they were at the time I was in technical school. I used to love all that woodwork and everything. So these hands here, that was my brains, So yeah. Turned out I was going with a girl nearly right at the time I was there. Bernard, that was her name, and coming near the end of like 3 or whatever months it was, I said I won't be back, forget about me. But anyway, so that gave that lady up anyway, and I come home, passed the exams. I had 4 exams to do, 4 modules. So I promised myself a good night out when I passed the exams, celebrating Dublin, and of course, thought with the frying pan into the fire, I met the wife that night. And that started a whole new chapter. It lasted for 30 years. Yeah. So after meeting her that night, 6 months later we got married in Mallow in February, yeah. And then she came away to stay. One of the reasons I wanted to get married was at the time after being in a new regulation that you could bring your wife with you. Of course, nothing to do with me, only fit that into that slot. So anyway, that was the main reason we rushed into it, We didn't even know each other. I was away half the time, which we were, at that particular time. So. Anyway, marry in haste, 1969, man went to the moon and Paul went to sea in June that year. And I flew out said goodbye to the family in Dublin Airport, flew to London on my own, and then I flew out to the Persian Gulf to Bahrain, joined the ship that day or that night, wherever it was. And before I knew where I was on the way out to India and Singapore and Vietnam during the war. Back and forth. That first ship was it was a real old ship, real old guys on it, They were different attitudes of the guys who I've stayed with later on. And it was limping around, it was coming near the end of the stage, And there was an Indian crew. So that's how we were introduced to curries and all this kind of stuff, I always remember it, but I did love it, It was my first trip and my best trip, So, yeah. No, every ship wasn't great. It was good crews and bad crews, and ships you fit into better than others, and ships that would break your heart, But no, always stayed there. Never missed a day, never missed a watch. I was always proud of the fact I never missed a watch. And fellas would end up, be too hot for them, and they'd end up in the fridge. And I've been in situations where the days were just something would happen, break down, I remember guys panning out. One guy that we couldn't find him, And he was down. He was at the. I'm getting mixed up in different ships, But anyway, Willie, God love him, he was always getting me in trouble. He had a big drink problem, And I brought him up to the cabin one night after 4. I come up and said it must have been the 12 to 4. I come up 4 o'clock, and we opened a bottle of Bacardi or something, or a bottle of. It wasn't Bacardi, it was Martini. And he wasn't allowed to drink, he was told not to drink. And of course I gave him the drink. And next minute he went down into the engine room and he's lying on the head, asleep on the life jacket. And the chief found him. And of course, he said to me, okay, he says, you caused that. You're doing his watches now until he's recovered. So I was doing double watches and everything. I walked myself into it, Yeah, I did 6 years at sea. It's not. You're coming home and leave, and you're going back out again. And I think the wife came away with me once. I'm not sure, was it once or twice. But we were in Palermo in Sicily, and she was with me in the hotel for a while anyway. And then the ship. We actually got shipwrecked in port. We were in Palermo in the dry dock, and the sea wall this night gave way, and the ship just actually, there was another ship outside it. We found out it was a gun running ship later on. The wall gave way, so the ship ended up sailing across the harbour in a box. And there was no propeller, nobody was killed in our ship anyway. And I think it was actually one man was killed from rocks flying up. But it was funny because I was on nights. And the night before, I had this eerie feeling on the ship. It was really weird. I still remember the cranes. Everything was open chain blocks because of the maintenance, And it just felt really weird, But it was a weird feeling anyway. And that's the next night, that particular night that the thing gave way. But I was away in the hotel, and we used to go down to this pub down, you know, and get a taxi out to the ship and all that. But the ship actually came right across the harbour to the pub. But it was no longer a ship, and the cranes were going like this and jumping around like. So the wife had to fly home from that anyway. So I remember my mother receiving a telegram to say Paul was okay. You know, she wouldn't even been aware of you know, if some people would be aware of in the news, you know, in Palermo shipwreck or whatever, you know. I still have the photographs inside of it, all the papers cutting, you know. Yeah, so that was interesting. Different times. Now I'd be on the mobile phone and I'd be, all right, like, you know. My friend Christy, he just died there last year, and we were big into it. He was in the Sloomery with me, and then himself and this other guy that used to be in the army side of it, they'd go down. They were after joining this sailing club called Glenann's, Glenan sailing, French sailing school, and they had a base in Cork, in Bear Island, and these guys they were lecturers at this stage. You know, we were brand new to sailing, you know. So I had a couple of lovely happy years down over bringing the kids and everything. Vinny, I remember the eldest fella there now, Colin, bringing him down to a boat to get him home after say we were down there for a week or 2 weeks, whatever it was. And I brought him down in a wheelbarrow. Down to we had to get the ferry. And the ferry out to Bear Island at the time was 2 planks across the boat. And I put the car up on that and sailed it. It's a company car as well. And so anyway, that was a few things like that happened over the years. We were good, you know, good. Even brought my aunts down to mind the kids and all from Belfast. It was hilarious things that happened over that way. But I still remember like that particular time bringing Vinny Coleman down in the boat, because the lads were saying, was it Cork will be playing the final or something the next day, and the lads were saying to me like, you know, if you want to get off the island, I had to go back to work on the Monday. You must get off, get the car out Saturday night. And of course the lads, I would say the lads were still with us, and the tide was out the next morning anyway. And we were just bringing the family, just the car was already gone ashore. That's why I said bringing him down the wheelbarrow. But my aunts were elderly enough at the time, you know. And I had to go down this big steep ladder, you know, to bring my aunt. And I had to go down under her skirt. These big feckin' bloomers. So they were saying, no one ever saw bloomers like you. And getting her down step by step. I said, oh, come on, you have to go where you're staying here otherwise. You know? So, crazy things, you know. But anyway, look, we had great times, you know, great times all together there, you know. My first dinghy in Monkstown that I bought, I bought a boat at a show. You know, typical sailboat, lovely coloured sail, and it was a useless thing. And the water, whatever, it was a faulty hull, so the water would get inside it, and it would keep turning over. So I had an experience with it one night over in the harbour, in Cork Harbour. So anyway, I was on a beautiful sunny summer's evening out by myself, well capable of getting the boat up, but this thing wouldn't come back up. And I just kept going over. I couldn't get into it again. So anyway, obviously the crack was after getting worse, whatever, you know. So there's a big Russian ship coming around the corner. I'm out swimming in front of it. So anyway, it turned out that I set all the alarms around, and the Monkstown, which I joined eventually, was they sent a rescue boat out. They might have been sailing that night or something, and the guys in Cove were actually picking it up on the radio. So they all came out just as the ship was coming by me, and they hang on to the bar. But there'd been an accident in England somewhere in a little Mirror dinghy, and I read about it in the Mirror magazine, you know, the Mirror paper, where this little fella was sailing alongside the ship, and obviously without seeing him, the propeller started up, and he got sucked down into the wake. I can't remember, was he killed or not? I had no recollection of that. But I remember reading about it. Right? There's me coming into the wake of this ship. It's drifting by it. So I said to myself, don't panic, just go down, he sucked down, keep a cool head, and come back up again. I don't know what would have happened in reality, but anyway. But the man couldn't turn the ship. He couldn't reverse. He couldn't go anyway. He had to keep going. My little boat and me didn't matter a shit to them. Like they couldn't, you know. So I was rescued. So mad. Only there are little instances of mad things would happen. And then what happened was anyway, when they dragged me in, I was suffering from hypothermia and everything at that stage. Without, even on a summer's night, like. We've been too long in the water, and they dragged me in and they brought me into this guy's place in White Point. And he had a neighbour who had a vagabond dinghy. This is the one I ended up getting. And he got word back to your man. He said, I've got a cruiser in the shed and I've got a vagabond dinghy. And he said to your man, he said, if you want to swap it, I'll take that one. So I didn't take the cruiser, I took the vagabond dinghy. And that brought me then over to a whole new place over in Monkstown, where I was there that was my main sailing club. And that vagabond, that started me in the whole sailing in Monkstown. We spent years and years up and down to Monkstown from Mallow up and down. So I'd be there on a Tuesday night and a Saturday, maybe on a Friday night as well. And I could be coming down from Donegal at work. I'd be there. If it was a Friday night, I'd be sailing. Like Saturday morning as well, maybe. So anyway, that went on for a good few years. And then the guy decided to offer a boat building course. And I went out and I built a very similar one called the Blackbird. The first one was called Nomad. That was the one I bought off that guy. And the second one was called The Blackbird. And it was the only song my father ever sang was the Blackbird. So I put D-E, except for Cork, you know, the Blackbird. And I built a trailer, I built a launching trolley, and he came down on a Sunday afternoon, I remember, and I sat with his wife. And I gave him a bloody good bargain. I said to him, I'll tell you this something, and he thought I was going to tell him about some fault. You have to get some bargain. Now, my full intention at the time was he'll keep it for a while, like everyone else does, and sell on. Every family moves there. I never saw him again. He came for a small bit, and he went before. And to this day, I'd buy the boat back. I would get it. You know. But anyway, beautiful boat. I wasn't a great sailor, you know. I was an enthusiastic sailor. I wouldn't be competitive at the top of the league, but I'd be there anyway. I used to love it. I'd travel all over the country. I'd go to Belfast, I'd go to Cork, Wexford, anywhere, to be on a boat, for the crack. Like, there was a guy called Eddie English in Cork Harbour, and he's really good. He happened to be the guy that rescued me. You know, when they came off, when the alarms were going off, and myself and Gail, we were sailing in the GP14 in a really, really bad day up from, we used to, a race called from Cove to Blackrock. So you come right up around Monkstown, up the river. And it was like a really wild day, like, and he had a catamaran, he was really fast, you know. But that day, because of the weather, the wind, whatever, didn't suit him. So myself and Gail beat him. So we won the race to Blackrock. And that was, I gave up after that. A lovely trophy and all for that, you know. So that was, I decided that I was coming near the end anyway, and that I pulled out then after that, like, you know. It was lovely to have that memory that we won the Cork to Blackrock race, you know. Still going on, you know. So. Gail was a wonderful sailor, that's the eldest girl. She'd be regularly out in the vagabond with me, like. And then the next girl, Emma, Claire, I should say, had no interest at all in sailing or anything else for that matter, in that regard, in our sport, you know. And then I thought I overdid the training of Gail, you know. And then she got a fright. Actually, the boat, we did a swap boat, you know, one time. And this fella called Billy O'Mara wasn't a great sailor, but I took his boat and he took mine. And I had all these gadgets for it, you know, that he wasn't used to. And the bloody boat toppled over, but he jumped out. But Gail was trapped under the boat for ages, you know. And it wasn't, you know, it was safe enough, it was an air pocket inside. And she got her up anyway. She got a bit of a fright then. It wasn't bad, you know. I was at the buying a GP14, which is a much bigger boat altogether. And then Gail was on the little kids training course. So anyway, they sent her out in my big boat and didn't realise that the boat was too big for her. She was panicky, like, and that put her off completely, you know. So she came home, I'm not sailing anymore, you know. But I didn't realise for a long time what actually happened, you know. So then I just felt guilty about that. So then when Colin came along, I said, okay, I'm not going to teach him anything. If he wants to do it, he can do it himself, you know. I lost track with him after that. He was doing his own thing. And then I was down there to Monkstown to pick him up. I think it was off something over in Crosshaven. And he was bringing the boat back to Monkstown. I was sitting waiting on him, you know. And then I was watching this young fella coming in, you know, full of admiration. I could see the skill, you know. And I love, anyway, I just, anybody with skill, I just love it, you know. And I admired him. God, I the way he come in. And then I realised it was my own fella. I didn't recognise him with all the gear, you know. You know, the way, for some, he was doing his own thing for such a long time. And, it was class, you know. But that was it. And I had very little input into his sailing. And don't know how he picked it all up, but he was good. And I think this year now he was in the World Championships in Skerries. He's actually running it as well as competing in it. And he was the best Irish boat. He was 5th overall. So he was a hero in his lunchtimes at Hellby. They were all applauding him about the great job he did, trying to do the whole lot together, as well as building a house that I was like, help him renovate the whole. Then I just don't know how he did it. Like, he was up 6 o'clock in the morning doing exercise, you know. So then Vinny, don't think Vinny was, he never out with me anyway. He was very young, and of course, well, he was the youngest. Gail, Emma had no interest either in sailing. I don't know what she used to do really. But then Vinny's big thing was horse riding and gymkhanas and all that kind of thing. Like, so he was taken up with that. He had no interest in going out to the boats, like, you know. Okay, this is the whole family here. Father, eldest daughter Gail, second daughter Claire, next daughter Emma, and the youngest is Vinny. This is the little fellow that looked like me in the other video. And that's it. That was in Sorrento in Italy. Yeah. So Gail's a great sailor, Colin's a great sailor, and he's a jockey. He went off to the Curla, but now he's his own business mechanic, a car mechanic, and picks up cars and all that. Emma's working at home in Mallow. She's got one child. He's got 2 children. Claire's got 1 boy, and Gail has got a boy and a girl. This is me in 1988 in the World Championships in Howth. That's me at the back, by the way. I was a lot younger then. That was that World Championship, people are still talking about it. It was so rough. There were ginormous seas at the time. That's not, they're still talking, when I go up to Skerries, people still talk about that 1988 one, you know. This is my graduation day photograph. I did the honours in 2014, and the first one in the Ordinary one in 2012. And this is one of that graduation for the honours degree. I'm the only one that ever gets that taken, because I was so lucky that because I was older, maybe, you know, they all stood up, and they're normally sitting down and shaking hands. They all stood up around me, so that was thrill. This is actually the day one of the days, just as I do my group search in North Strand in Dublin, and there was Hoppy was the name of the metalwork teacher. Going to that school is what saved my life. I hated school when I was in the primary school, you know, and I never attended. I was hardly ever there. Down to the tech, and everything took off. And that's the culmination of my education. We met in school, Bolton Street College, and we were both apprentices at the time. We became friends. And he was one of the few people I remember meeting where we clicked right away. We became friends, and we're up till October last year, I think it was, he died. And I used to meet him. He'd come back from America. He'd a wife in America and a girlfriend here. Everyone knew that, and he knew it, and the wife knew it, everything. But anyway, so I would go down, I'd meet him, and his wife would come over, she wanted to play golf, and they'd hire a house in Connemara. And I go off for a few days with him, like when he was here. We go walking and having a few pints, and then while she's playing golf and a dinner at night. And then with the other girl, then we go down. She lived in Dublin, and we go down to a place down near Waterville, and she'd get a loan of a house. We go down there for a few days, you know. Angela would say, like, going for dinner and all. It was very good. You're so many hours in a day, or get the hell out of here, you know. That's it. But she wanted to be with him. So anyway, last year, we often went down to this house. See, now you're coming, we're tidying the house up. Your time is 9:30 in the morning, out of here. I was joking, but it was serious at the same time. But last year, the irony of it was that he insisted, she told me later, that he insisted on me being there for the 4 days. He wouldn't take no for an answer. It was like a premonition, you know. And we went out to Skelly Michael and all. We had lovely photographs there. We went out to Skelly Michael. And yeah, so it was weird that it happened. He went home, and in the time he went back to America and he died. And I rang him to say, like, I haven't talked to him for a while. And I rang him, and I just knew when his voice, I'd be very intuitive that way. I just knew he's gone, you know. And he said to me, can I ring you back? I said, will that be today or tomorrow? It'd be today. Never heard another word. But that was the last sentence. But I just knew there was just something about the voice and the weakness, you know. But he was actually my best man, you know. And yeah, we had a lovely relationship. There was never any, we never had a row or anything like that. We just meet up and have the crack, and it was never hugging, and we just take up again. Good friendship, you know. Oh, I miss him so much. This is the first summer now like that. I won't be doing that, you know. Yeah, I miss him greatly, but what can you do, you know. We had great nights. I mean, I remember even going back to Crosshaven, or one particular, we often spoke of it, like, we got so drunk. There was a dance hall down in the Mallorca, and in Crosshaven. And I remember one night we got so drunk, we crawled up and rolled up the hill, laughing our heads off, you know. I think Roy Orbison's been playing that. I was standing as close as I am to you now, with Roy Orbison playing on the stage, you know, in the Mallorca. But I always spoke of that night when we were in bits. That's the way I was in those days. So I don't think I've changed much. I've been very, very lucky. I've been blessed, really, you know. I've never seen a poor day, thank God. Hope I never do. And it's a kind of it's strange looking back on your life, because I'm here now and I've all this time, have this fabulous place I live in, you know. I've been very, very lucky, you know. I went from one thing to another thing to another thing. It was always like God's opened it up for me, you know, even getting this place here, you know. So I'm just so happy. Thank you, God.